got Robert Siegel, the writer of The Wrestler, the author, and also a big fan. That's the new one. Robert, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I am good. Good to be here.
Excellent. Very cool. Let's start off talking about Big Fan here. That's the new movie, and it's
Yes.
I've seen a lot of trailers for it, read a lot of stuff about it. It sounds awesome. Tell people who aren't in the know what the movie's about.
For those not in the know, it stars Patton Oswalt, who is probably best known for King of Queens. He plays the neighbor Spence on that. He's also the voice of the rat in Ratatouille, and he's a stand-up comedian. He plays a guy named Paul, who's the world's biggest Giants fan, New York Football Giants, and he gets his ass kicked by his favorite player one night, and that's kind of the thing that sets the whole movie in motion. The premise of the movie is this hardcore football fan is beaten up by his hero. So the movie's kind of a dark. It's kind of a dark psychological drama. Although some people actually consider it a comedy. It's a little strange, but it kind of focuses. It's all about how he deals with this thing that he built his whole life around has literally and figuratively punched him in the face, and it's kind of a test of his loyalty to the Giants.
What gave you the idea for this? Was this, just you sat down and started writing this, or is there something that you based this off of?
No, it goes all the way back to when I was a kid. I grew up on Long Island, New York, and I would listen to sports radio obsessively as a kid. So that I would hear these guys. There's a big sports radio component in the movie. He listens to a sports radio station, and he calls in. He's a regular caller, so that whole world is explored. And I just, I heard these guys. I heard these hardcore sports fans, and I'm a huge sports fan myself, not to this degree, but I heard these guys, and then just all the things that happen that you read about in the news, Plaxico Burress and Michael Vick, and there's always some athlete doing something, bad. So it's just, I don't know. I don't remember the moment the premise came to me, but I just said, what if a athlete beat up a fan? Who idolizes him.
Yeah, it's a cool thing to think about, to imagine, like, if there's something in your life that you love that much and you just, like, idolize it, and then you finally get, like, that close to what you like, and then it totally turns on you.
Yeah, hopefully it is relatable to people, even if you're not a football fan, just if you're a fan of anything, there are obsessives of all types. Like Patton Oswalt, for example, is not a football fan at all, doesn't know anything about sports, but he's a huge hardcore comic books nerd. So he so he knows that kind of psychology, if you will, but even though he doesn't, it translates. It's the same thing, whatever the obsession is.
How'd you pick Patton Oswalt? Like, is that that seems like an interesting choice for a kind of a darker movie. He's kind of known for being the funny guy, obviously. He's
a comedian, yeah, but comedians are pretty dark. It's easier to go from comedy to drama than the other way, and he's had a few small roles in some dramatic things. I just thought for starters, I thought he looked right. He's kind of a short, no disrespect, Patton, if you're listening, short, pudgy guy, and looks like he's kind of pasty and looks like he doesn't get out much, and just fit the image of what I had for this character. I didn't think Brad Pitt or George Clooney would be right for this role.
Yeah.
Often you see that in movies where they'll cast a big handsome star, and then he'll gain 6 pounds for the role, and you're expected to think, oh yeah, now I buy he's a loser,
Yeah, now Brad Pitt looks like me because he's 6 pounds heavier.
Right, and we did his makeup a little, unflatteringly, and oh yeah, I get it. He's he's a sports nerd, so I didn't want to go that route, and he's just. And he's just likable, This character could have, in somebody else's hands, come off as really creepy, because he is really a nut and obsessive. And I wanted somebody who had a likability, and people just find Patton really cuddly and cute. Even when in his stand-up he'll say really nasty, vicious things, but people will just kind of be like, "Oh, Patton,
that little Patton,
you little scamp, you're so grumpy," And he could just be saying something totally hateful.
Yeah,
so,
he gets away with any of that.
Yeah.
Is it hard for you coming off such a huge success like The Wrestler? Obviously that's just for one, how did that feel? You write a movie and it's obviously when you write something, you don't know probably for one if it's going to sell, if it's going to get made, and then if it does, how well it's going to do. Did you expect that?
And in this case, I really had no idea. It sounds great now, but a year ago or whenever it came out, a year and a half ago, when I told people, they asked what I'm working on, I say, well, I'm writing a movie about a washed-up pro wrestler, and it stars Mickey Rourke. It sounds like a terrible movie that you'd see on, HBO 4. They just, it doesn't obviously sound like, oh, this is going to be a prestigious hit Oscar movie. The subject matter. So I certainly didn't take for granted that people would respond to it and that it would become a big hit. But that's of course what we hope.
Yeah, exactly. You cross your fingers for that. Is it tough to come off something like that? I mean, is there like a lot of pressure, that the next thing's got to be, a step up from the wrestler? Or do you just feel like I just got to keep doing my art?
Yeah, well, it helps that I wrote this one before. I wrote Big Fan before I wrote The Wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
The actual script came first. That's actually how I met the director of The Wrestler, was through this, because he liked this script. But yeah, I'm trying not to psych myself out. So far, so good. Maybe the next one I'll screw up.
Yeah. Do you have something else in the works right now? How's that work as a writer? Like, do you have a bunch of little projects you're kind of working on, or do you get one out of the way and then start 100% on another?
Some people just have 5 things they're working on at once, and they've got all this stuff going, and some people can only focus on one thing at a time. It's really hard for me to focus on one thing at a time, especially since this was a low-budget thing that I wrote and directed, and I did everything on this. So it's been it's been pretty all-consuming. So I haven't. I don't know what I'm doing next. But once this is over, and I'll hopefully I can take a long walk or sit on a beach for a couple days, and something will pop into my head.
Exactly, and then it's going to happen all over again. My producer's freaking out and making me ask you what happens to Randy the Ram at the end of the movie.
Does he die? Is that what he wants to know?
I think that is what he wants to know.
I'm going to give away the ending?
Yes.
The answer is he makes the decision to die. He's willing to die. I have no idea if he dies during that match. He might or he might not jump off the top rope and get a heart attack. But we kind of know that whether it's that match or 5 matches down the line, eventually it's going to kill him because he accepts that this is the only thing I want to do, and even if it kills me, so be it. So
I see.
Is that too arty an answer?
I think that's a good answer. Was that tough? Like when you wrote that, I mean, were there people that are saying no, you need to show him dying, or you need to show him not dying, or was that just? We started with the image of him going off the top rope and freezing. That was always how we kind of started with the end. No, I don't know. I kind of like that you don't know whether he dies or not. It would have been kind of weird for the closing image to be him laid out on a stretcher and a heart monitor is flatlining or something. I like it too, and I see where other people come from. It pissed me off right at first because you're so into it, and then you're like, oh, what happened? But then once you really think about it, I kind of get what you're saying there.
Doesn't really, I mean, it doesn't. It ends when he decides to go back into the ring. That's really everything else from there is kind of postscript, but we know where it's going. I think. Excellent.
Well, hey, Robert Siegel, the author of The Wrestler and the writer of The Big Fan, writer and director. There, you guys have a website for the movie, right?
Yeah, it's called it's bigfanmovie.com. We're not booked yet in. Where are you, Billings?
We're in Billings. Yeah, we're not. It's not coming here yet.
We don't have it yet, but the plan is global domination, and you got to. We're starting in about 30 cities, and you spread from there as word of mouth and buzz builds. It's one of those movies.
Excellent.
So. But I think it will eventually. If the response is what I'm hoping and expecting, we will definitely get to Billings, or at least Missoula.
Excellent. Well, we'll check it out if it's in Billings or Missoula. Robert Siegel, thanks so much for joining us, man. You've been great.
Thank you so much.
The Big J Show. Weekday mornings from 6 till 10 on Billings' #1 hit music station, Hot 101.9.